when I hear Baker Street, which is just a great song, I am immediately back in my family car driving from New Hampshire to Florida on these annual trips we would take to see my grandparents, just driving straight down the highway. And I'm kind of transported back to that moment, which are great memories. The back seat was down, the sleeping bags were out. I mean, it was the most unsafe environment you can imagine. It was like the cars didn't have seat belts. You just be rummaging around. It was like you were camping back there, and they just go.
Welcome back to Campus Convos. Joining me this week is President Buxton, President of Durham Tech Community College. We've been partnered, President Buxton, for a little while now. He connected through Sam and Ginny on our go-to-market team. And yeah, we've been running the content in the bookstore there. So great to have you on the show this week.
Great to be with you, and thanks for the invitation.
Great. So to kick things off, love to hear your thoughts on some of the tech and socioeconomic trends that you think are impacting higher education right now.
What's not impacting higher education right now? I mean, it feels like we're kind of in one of those moments where everything is about to shift. And by everything, I mean, I think this is a moment, not just artificial intelligence, but the nature of the economy, the nature of jobs. We're a huge tech sector here, life sciences, advanced manufacturing, great universities. And it feels like we're all pressured in this moment to figure out how we're going to get people to opportunity, really connect talent to opportunity. What I think is really exciting about the moment is all of our sectors really create pathways to strong opportunity. So whether you're coming to the community college first and going straight into the workforce, or you're going to a place like NC Central or UNC Chapel Hill or Duke University, or coming to us and then on to one of those institutions, or coming back to us to get some additional training, it feels like all of our institutions have an opportunity. At the same time, I think we're all going to be challenged by the nature of artificial intelligence and how it's going to change what our value proposition really is to a learner and to someone preparing to move into a career.
Yeah, totally. It's such a fascinating time. Are you seeing any shift in the enrollments into certain courses and away from certain courses that you think are like driven by AI or data centers or whatever technological change is happening?
You know, we're doing a lot of work right now I'll tell you a couple of things. One, we're doing some work now in an initiative called Careers Electric, where we've been given some money by a national foundation, along with 9 other community colleges, to expand enrollment and training in electrical systems and electrical careers, just given electrification, AI, residential growth, and electrical needs. We're just seeing in the advanced manufacturing sector, especially, and in the economy, a need for those kind of technicians. Really, we're seeing technicians needed all across the workforce and the landscape. But we are seeing a little bit of a uptick in our skilled trades. And we're seeing an uptick in what we call our applied degrees. So think biotechnology in addition to things like skilled trades, because I think people are beginning to hedge against AI. And even if they're not coming for full degrees, they're starting to look for skill sets where, given that the economy is tight, the labor market's tight right now, where they're going to have a chance to shift into something more applied and that demands technical skill versus the kind of entry-level white-collar skills that may come out of university degree. That's one. I think we're definitely seeing that. But I still think there's a lag in this labor market. We're in the Research Triangle in North Carolina, such strong university presence that a lot of jobs that might in other labor markets go to someone with a 2-year degree or a short-term credential. There's such a surplus of bachelor degree talent here that bachelor degree talent ends up getting those jobs as well. So it's still a really durable credential to have a bachelor's, and we're still seeing a lot of enrollment in our transfer programs for people coming to Durham Tech to then move on to one of our local universities. So I'd say it's still a little bit lagging.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's still hard to pin down exactly where AI is like, removing jobs and potentially adding them, though I think as each quarter passes, it becomes clearer and clearer. It seems like on the software engineering side, like Claude Code and some of these tools, Codex, can basically do the job of an engineer, which is pretty wild. And I think somewhat unexpected a few years ago to think of engineering being a job that could be replaced. And I think there's some data showing enrollment in like computer science type courses around the country and also in the UK is down. You touched on a really interesting point. So power generation is obviously huge at the moment. Have there been any issues with electricity price in North Carolina or close to where you guys are? And how do you think the US can go about building enough power generation to support, the needs going forward?
Well, it's just become a huge issue in the US politically. And the data center build has gotten tied in with people's sense of, who's going to end up paying for it. The companies that stand most to benefit, are we going to be paying as taxpayers for the data centers that end up profiting them? What's the ecological and kind of environmental sustainability of the data centers? And then tied up with just kind of cultural and small p political thinking about AI in general, and is it going to take people's jobs? And so it's one of these moments when people have kind of coalesced left, right, middle against capital A, capital I, and then everything involved is seeing impacts. And so if you look in our region, we're seeing especially suburban and rural counties putting in moratoriums on new data centers, and that's generally where the land is to build in the most unobtrusive ways. But we're also seeing in Durham resistance to Duke building a very small kind of micro data center to help power their research and physical plant needs at the college and at the university. And so it is really interesting to see what is happening in kind of this larger backlash that I think is uniting people concerned about impact on jobs, impact on environment, and impact on the taxpayer. And you can see politics following right now. For us, it puts us in kind of a funny place. Everybody hates AI, but everyone uses it. Faculty, staff, students. And so finding ways that we are making sure that faculty and staff have all the benefits of the capacity and impact of AI, but also can ensure that from an academic standpoint, it's being used well and appropriately, making sure students are able to be prepared to use it in a way that their careers are going to demand it, and making sure the institution can benefit in its processes and be efficient in that way so our people can spend time with other people in high value, high leverage interpersonal situations, while at the same time thinking about ethical boundaries and environmental impacts that your community cares about. It's an interesting time.
It's such a pivotal moment in history, really. I think we're looking at polling showing AI being like a top 3 political issue, whether it's like you say, the data centers or the electricity prices. And to think just a couple of years ago, really the focus has always been on the economy, inflation, immigration, things like this. But it's possible this AI issue becomes, in some people's minds or most people's minds, more important than those two. Obviously, it has a big impact on the economy anyway, but it's pretty interesting. Also interesting to see like there's such a huge requirement for more power generation, and China's obviously powering ahead. The US has done pretty well for the developed countries. It's actually a huge issue in the UK. I think the UK has the highest electricity prices of pretty much any developed country. We have a ton of wind energy, but not really enough base load, whether that be like gas or nuclear or whatever. And it has a really negative knock-on effect on all sorts of industries, particularly manufacturing when the power prices are high. So, it's a challenge.
And I think you've got two countervailing. Now, let me get way outside of my lane as a higher education guy. But you've got long-term, I would say, kind of knee-jerk reactions on nuclear. But clearly nuclear is a way that a lot of the major technology companies and the government in a lot of ways are thinking about how you can power, and the utility companies are certainly looking at nuclear and kind of mini reactors as a possibility. Nuclear also takes 10 to 15 years to get stuff online, both in the construction and the regulatory framework that we have in the country. And then this tension we're having with renewables and clean energy. We've been kind of on one path up to our last presidential election. We're kind of on a different path now, both in terms of regulatory environment, the kind of power that is being preferred, and the kind of incentives that are or are not there. And so if you have an all of the above or all in strategy, you feel like you got a way to maybe meet these needs. If you don't, and you're still going to choke off some of the opportunity for clean energy and renewables to grow and be competitive, I think you've got a whole different question. So, yeah, and for our universities, it's a huge issue given the kind of research, science, technology footprint that they have and their ability to harness AI and what its impact is going to be. Yeah, I think we're in a time where higher education, I think is going to really be grappling for a while. And I think the biggest question is how much we do this together as a larger higher education community. I mean, the good news for us in the Research Triangle is Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, NC Central, NC State, some private colleges and universities, together with about 5 or 6 community colleges. These are really things we need to be doing and deciding together, and I think we're well positioned to do that.
Totally. And I think you're absolutely right. Sort of all of the above approach is the pragmatic way to make the most of power generation across the board, whether it's fossil fuels or nuclear or renewables. Sometimes you just got to be pragmatic and look at everything and not be too blinkered, really. And Durham Tech, obviously you mentioned, is in this fantastic corridor, the Triangle, which I've been to your campus. I've been there. It's a beautiful place of the world and very successful. And then as college president, how are you making sure that local residents aren't left behind by all this fantastic growth? Obviously, things like property prices must be particularly high, et cetera, et cetera. So interested to hear about that.
Yeah, they are. And, it's essentially, that's our mission, is to make sure we're connecting talent to opportunity in this region, and really the full range of talent to the full range of opportunity. And we're fortunate that we've got a huge opportunities from an economic mobility and career standpoint in the Triangle. We can actually prepare people for jobs that are going to help them take care of themselves, their families, create generational wealth. I mean, in this area, we can do that, and we can pick and choose a little bit about which pathways to careers, universities and careers make sense for people, and not really be casting about for any kind of preparation that we need to do. When we got started back in 1961 is what really was the forerunner of the community college system, one of 6 institutions. It was all about helping Durham, and for us, Durham and Orange County residents, parts of the greater Research Triangle, connect to opportunity in a shifting economic time. Then it was tobacco, textiles, and furniture were the big areas of manufacturing and employment, especially for middle class and prosperity. Today, we're looking at life sciences, advanced manufacturing, skilled trades in general, healthcare as areas where our residents have opportunities to really get great careers and live out lives of meaning. But you don't want those places having to import, because lots of people love to come to North Carolina. We have lots of people coming here every day, and you want to make sure you're not living on imported talent from other states and countries to fill all these new jobs. So 2 examples. I gave you Careers Electric a little while ago about how we're trying to really build out the electrical system workforce in this area for what's a really growing area of our economy. Healthcare, we've done a lot of work with Duke, one of the largest health systems in the state, to build out a bigger talent pipeline in areas like nursing and surgical technologies or medical assisting. We've got a high school that we're doing in partnership with the local public school system and Duke on clinical trials, nursing, surgical tech, and medical assistance to get high school students in the pipeline early. And then in life sciences, we've started a program getting 18 to 25-year-olds focused on biotech and the careers in biomanufacturing, because they don't get a lot of young, diverse talent in life sciences as kind of a new industry sector in this area. And so we build out a special pipeline focus there. So for us, local residents into new opportunities is kind of core mission.
It's brilliant. And yeah, there's so many areas around the States where you have this like real surge of economic growth, but you need exactly what Durham Tech's providing, ensuring that there's the ability for everybody to take part of that growth and, upskill themselves, take part in the benefits of capitalism, essentially. Not
well, that's right. And, another thing, just
right
on that line, and we do this about as much as anyone in the country from a relative standpoint. We probably have 1,000 individuals at any one time taking English as a second language at the college. So we've got new immigrants into the community looking to get a foothold, needing English to do that. And they might be refugees, immigrants, and also individuals on international visas, higher education international visas. So we've got people trying to enter the economy, build the language skills they need to get in there. That's an area where we're trying to connect talent to opportunity. And it's an area where the research triangle really benefits from the in-migration we see domestically and internationally. And we get incredible talent that comes to this area. And then again, together with our university partners, it becomes incumbent upon us to put the pathways in place to get people to that opportunity.
Yeah, it's super important. Let me follow up with one question. You mentioned quite a lot of students studying English as a second language. What commonly is their first language in the area?
Our largest concentration is going to come from Central and South America. So it's going to be Spanish is the largest, but we have a fairly large population from Africa, and then when you think about the different countries and Francophone countries, we get some French speaking. In fact, I was just with an individual at the college who's from the Congo, and I was asking him about was it Congo first and France second in the World Cup, and we were just talking about kind of language and how that impacts their experience. But we have, on our international visas, we have 214 students from 55 different countries. Now, those individuals are all from all across. Kenya, if I can get this right, Kenya, China, Colombia, those are our top three right now. But then we get Ukraine, we get from all over. Eastern Europe has a fair amount. So we get individuals with languages from all over the world. And it makes for a fantastic student body here at Durham Tech.
It's incredible because my understanding is a lot of community colleges don't have many international students, right? Or students from all over the world either. It depends on the area, obviously, but yeah, really, really incredible diversity.
Well, and I think what's happened lately, we've seen a 30% uptick in international visas. And as you've seen universities drop, I think what's happened is people have just moved from a placement at a university to a placement at a community college. We've got the opportunity to move them to the university later, depending on what the visa allows. And so we become a really good route. And the great reason we're a good first stop for a lot of these students is they can build a community and find a community, country, language, region of origin. And also, we've got the ability to really put our arms around them and provide a lot of support early and kind of onboarding culturally and academically, and then move them on to the university or to go back home to the university. So yeah, we're fortunate to have that kind of population here, and our domestic student body is a real benefactor of that as well.
Totally. I guess increasingly, I hadn't really thought of this, but obviously North Carolina is drawing people from all over the US. Like it's a really popular place to be, to live, to work, etc. But that's all. It's also becoming an international destination, clearly, which is fascinating. Yeah, it's great for the state. So thinking about a lot of these students, right, like super diverse backgrounds, potentially not speaking English as a first language. A lot of them will have work, family, financial pressures, jobs, etc. How can colleges like Durham Tech use technology and AI to improve access and student success for these students?
Yeah, we're already seeing that, already doing that. And for a lot of our students, they come here part-time. We have in round numbers, about 18,000 individuals come to Durham Tech in any given year. About half of those are in short-term workforce continuing education credentials, and about half in degree seeking, whether that's a certificate or diploma or degree, depending on what they're going into. And the large majority of students, all of our continuing ed, but large majority of our degree seeking students come here part-time because they're working and going to school. Many of them are also juggling children or caring for parents at the same time. They're in this area. And so affordability is critical for them, but also accessibility. Online courses are critical, whether those are going to be blended opportunities or fully online. And then they're navigating the institution, whether it's our enrollment processes, our student support process, tutoring, et cetera, has got to be seamless and has got to be easy for them to access. So we're doing a lot on the AI side and kind of generative and agentic around how those processes are easy for students to navigate. They can get a lot of answers and access to services without having to come into an office, go through a lot of people, not because we don't want them with people, but we want the easy kind of rote issues and questions or connections to be made efficiently so that our people can spend a lot of time like this, whether it's online or in person, working through challenges, issues, navigation of the college's services with individuals who need that. We serve students 16 to 70 years of age. And anybody north of 40 is a little bit more interested in this conversation generally, but really everybody is experiencing the world kind of in a chatbot reality, depending on what services you're looking for. And so people expect some level of customization that way, but they also want to be able to have that conversation when they need it. And we want to make sure people are able not to sit at a desk and be pounding out emails and respond to people, but can get face-to-face in an office or online with people who really need that level of customer service. When you think about it academically, it's kind of the same issue. We want to make sure people have good access to online learning that fits in their schedule and allows them to be working, managing families, and going to school if needed. We also want the level of engagement and relationship with both professor and peers to be strong. One thing about community colleges that the research shows is no matter what personal challenges you might have while you're here, financial, personal, whatever they may be, when you have a strong connection with your faculty and you have engaging course material, that's how you respond to a question, you stay. And while not every situation is manageable, a lot of students will stick with it if they feel like they're engaged with their faculty and their course material is engaging. And so we got to make sure that online feels as good as and engaging as in person when that's someone's only option. And that's a challenge that I think all of higher education is dealing with right now. How not to just give someone an online class where they can get content, but to make sure that that course is as engaging and builds networks in the same way that an in-person class would as well.
It's interesting, like the more time goes on, really the more physical experiences and in-person connections mean something, right? Like you say, some content that's generated is certainly not as valuable as these other things. And touching on that point, how do you think the campuses will evolve over time? Obviously, as students change, but also as the courses change and you and your team sort of change their approach as well.
Absolutely. You know, if I could turn the camera here and show you the view to my left, you'd see two big new buildings being built on the campus, an 80,000 square foot health sciences facility for our healthcare programming and a 35,000 square foot life sciences facility for all our biotech related programming. And then a lot of quad and gathering space all around. And I mention that because as much as online learning since the pandemic has grown dramatically and students' preferences for having online options has grown, there's still a huge need for the in-person gathering and spaces that allow people to have these soft relationships or impacts where they are getting in touch with other people. And part of the issue at the community college, a residential 4-year gives you that opportunity to build strong networks, both with with your peers, with faculty, with alumni at times. Community colleges is generally doesn't provide as strong an opportunity in that area. But we know that in this labor market, this economy, those networks can be the difference between moving into a sector and not getting a foothold or a handhold into an industry. And so we want to be able to have a campus environment that creates strong opportunities for people to connect, to build relationships, to feel a part of a community, to build those muscles of networking and collaboration, both with fellow students and with faculty and staff members. And so I think the campus is going to be as important as it's been. At the same time, how we mature our online environments to feel as connective, or at least as connective as they can be, are going to be important as well. So it's kind of an all-in, both-and strategy, much like the energy environment we were talking about earlier. I don't think colleges can walk away from the physical presence and the opportunity to bring people together, because that networking function is an important part of what makes any higher education function work. It doesn't mean everything gets delivered in person, but it means you want to create those opportunities.
Yeah. Again, increasingly, I think something people say they value actually kind of reminds me of, I went to see Gorillas play at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium the other day, and how we see, spending on music gone down quite a lot. It's bounced back a bit actually on Spotify, but that spending on those in-person concerts is still, breaking records and become kind of in a sense, the core driver of the music industry. And I think, it's an apt analogy. I think the more we're kind of surrounded with technology and these kind of things, the more valuable the campus and that in-person time becomes.
Well, it's interesting about it is, it's kind of like we were talking earlier, everybody hates AI, but everyone's using AI, not literally.
Yeah.
People will tell you how much they want the in-person experience in a higher education standpoint, and then they'll take the online course and they won't drive in for the in-person advising meeting. They get and so you really have to build an environment that brings them in and helps them understand, when I come here, it's worth my time. And I'm meeting people that I'm glad to have met. And when I'm in class, it's a highly engaging environment. And all of a sudden, I'm going to have a network within the IT community or the life sciences community, the healthcare community, because the people I'm meeting, the people I'm in school with, the faculty I have, the alumni I'm getting connected to. And so we're really working hard at building our strategy there at a time when, in some ways, it feels almost like we're cutting against the grain. We think it's more important.
Totally. And I think you've got the network that hits professionally, but also a lot of people make lifelong friends, at
Exactly.
college as well, which is super important. I do really feel for a lot of the students, and maybe it was less in North Carolina, but certainly in the UK, a lot of students during the COVID period, there were lockdowns and all sorts. And basically their first year of university, they didn't really get the chance to meet people. And I feel like that would sort of that would affect you for the rest of your life, because one of those pivotal moments in your life to get to, meet all these interesting people, really.
We see the COVID impact at the college pretty significantly. And it's everything from engagement in the in-person environment and just having not quite built those muscles, engagement in class, to the use of and joining clubs and activities and the use of in-person services. And so, again, we're trying to help people see the value in that, build the opportunities. But I do think you're seeing a lot of people navigating life in a remote way because they can. But it's not, again, building some of those muscles of collaboration and creativity and what you get when you come together. We'll have both available to folks, but we want to make sure people are getting together and building, like you said, both those personal and professional networks.
Totally. It's such a crazy time. I'm also thinking that obviously community colleges and universities have done a great job in the past. When there's economic problems like the financial crisis, more people come and study, they get new skills. I mean, you were touching on this with the biotechnology qualifications at Durham Tech, and then they launch themselves into something new, etc. Do you think, I think about AI quite a lot, and it will start to eliminate jobs on fairly large scale. Do how quickly do you think community colleges like Durham Tech can create new courses and also scale down other courses which maybe have been impacted? And can you think back? I mean, I'm not really old enough to remember too many examples, but can you think back to like certain economic or technological changes in the past where you can think of new courses that had to be spooled up really quickly because of demand from employers or whatnot, and potentially some old courses that needed to be shuttered?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We started as an institution at a time, again, when tobacco, textiles, manufacturing was leaving and going overseas, and individuals who, many of whom had a high school education and were doing jobs that delivered good middle-class wages, they could take care of families, those opportunities were gone, and we were having to build pathways into new economies that were emerging. Healthcare, IT is probably the best examples from that time. And so you saw jobs go away, you saw new jobs created, and you saw, especially because of the Research Triangle Park, with not just great universities, but a long-standing tradition of government, business, and education working closely together to create opportunity, you saw new jobs created. I think when in the 2000s, a lot of that happened with the last of the manufacturing that went, and we saw some upticks in especially healthcare and IT, but in a lot of ways struggling to get some of those jobs back. In this area, healthcare and IT were the big drivers. Now we've seen biotech come in, and 8 of the 10 biggest life sciences firms, biomanufacturers, are in the triangle at this point. And so now, for the past 4 or 5 years, colleges like Durham Tech have been building the pathway to get people into a handful of jobs in that industry that don't require a 4-year degree. Healthcare has been like that for a long time for us, but the nature of those jobs change fairly rapidly, and we have to stand up programs in areas like surge tech or medical assisting quickly to meet growing demand. And when you have a growing community, you got to build a pretty robust pipeline because you're just seeing growth in that sector and talent demand kind of exponentially. Clinical trials is a great example of years ago that started to build in this region. I want to say kind of 2007, 2008, you saw clinical trials really building on the science and technology and research university talent that was here. And we stood up what was the first of 2 clinical trials associate programs in the country. Fast forward to 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, we took a look at all of our programs of study, canceled about or retired about 6 that we didn't think were responding to demand anymore. There was just not projected demand in those areas. But we also worked to reinvent about 7, one of which was clinical trials, because 20 years later, the nature of that job had changed. Universities were in that game in a way they hadn't been before, and we had to rethink what the nature of our programming looked like, and we did that. I think we're in that place right now. We're actually doing some work with the university partner right now to take a look at healthcare, skilled trades, and the sciences to see where AI is either threatening some of our programs of study and access to jobs, or pressuring them to make some changes, and so that we can get our academic leadership to really dig into where we need to do some reinvention or where we need to rethink whether we need those programs anymore. Recently, we had some great support from Google to, just like you talked about, rethink software development, software engineering. We realized we had a pathway to nowhere. And it wasn't that those individuals weren't needed as much as the AI skill set within was needed to allow people to move into some of those kind of entry-level opportunities. One of the big opportunities I think we are going to have as community colleges all across the country is people in 4-year universities coming back to us after they finish and realize that a lot of the entry-level white-collar jobs are not there. And a lot of the work that they had done before just isn't, that supply of job isn't there. We often get people who come back to us because they want to be in the research triangle, they want to be in life sciences or IT or healthcare, and they realize they need an applied credential. They need a technical skill to go with the bachelor's, and then that's a really good skill set to bring into the economy. So we have a lot. We're kind of like a grad school in that way, kind of soft grad school for 4-year graduates who return to us, get a skill, and then move in. Clinical trials is a good example. I think we're going to see that increase. Or we may see universities come to us and say, look, we're going to graduate people with a bachelor's of science in fill in the blank. We want them to have a credential from you in pharmacology or clinical trials or biotechnology, so they've got more of a handhold in the local economy. And I think that's going to be a really good partnership, and we're just kind of moving into that kind of conversation.
It's super interesting. I hadn't thought Durham Tech specifically, like you had mentioned, was at this time and place of, like you say, the tobacco industry, manufacturing, leaving. It's like these technological changes and changes to the economy. People can be like quite, I guess, short-term memory and just think of the latest one. But there have been big shifts already the last couple of decades, kind of thing. So super interesting, super important as well. Well, really appreciate having you on today, JB. Thanks everyone for listening. Obviously, do remember to like and subscribe. And we look forward to having you join us next time.
Thanks, Dave. And appreciate your partnership with WU.